Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of The Comic Book Veteran. My name is Patrick, and I collect comic books, and I'm a veteran, so it seemed like a fair name to call these episodes. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about comic book movies. Specifically, I'm going to target the MCU. I'm not target them, but talk about them. Let's put it that way. And I want to talk about their effects on comic book collecting in general. So, I alluded to, and I talked about in an earlier episode, that I started collecting comic books in the mid-1970s. I say 74, 75, 76 time frame. When I was, say, 5 years old or so. My parents, grandparents, and great-grandmother bought me comic books, most of which I still have. And as I got older and I started collecting comic books more earnestly, particularly from the time I was 18, 19 years old, a comic book at that point in the late 80s, comic books were really becoming a bit more mainstream. Particularly with the success of the Batman movie in 1989 and its follow-ons. It reached a real feverish energy and drove a lot of comic book sales. DC was doing great. Marvel was doing well, particularly selling the X-Men. You see those up there. And it was a big thing, and then it faded out. But it was like a small flame. And then, as we got into the late 90s, there were the Blade movies. I'll point out the first appearance of Blade over here. And those were not accessible to younger viewers because they were more violent. They were rated R, as I recall. But it didn't really change pop culture. Yes, there was influence. Yes, you could go into almost any store and you could find toys and action figures and things like that related to Spider-Man. It's been like that as long as I can remember. I remember going to Halloween in the mid to late 70s, where I was dressed as Spider-Man. I had the little plastic mask on and the little, paper-thin plastic suit. And I was Spider-Man. I loved playing Spider-Man. And even that was just a lot of fun for me. I remember having some Spider-Man comic books when I was a kid, and yeah, it was a big deal. And there were some Marvel movies and TV shows going back to the 70s. There were a few live action, mind you. There's live action Captain America, Spider-Man, and then of course we had the Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno, who is just incredible story that man has. I've had the opportunity to meet him, and actually I'm looking forward to meeting him again in a few months as he's coming to a Comic-Con near me. So I will go. I have got my picture taken with him the last time I saw him. I got his autograph, and I'm super excited about that, particularly to introduce my kids to him. When I met him before, my kids were not with me. They should be this time if all goes to plan. So I am looking forward to that, to go, here's the Hulk. No CGI. That was all him. So anyway, we move forward. We get to the late 80s, and there's always been this little small subculture. And if you got something that was really big, like the 1989 Batman film, everybody went nuts over it, and then it would die out. We get to 2000, we had the introduction of the X-Men, and then the Fantastic Four, and regardless of how you view any of those movies, whether you love them or hate them, there was a cultural impact because it laid the groundwork for what came and became the MCU. or what we affectionately now know as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, abbreviated MCU. Now, over my right shoulder, you'll see I even have the Infinity Gauntlet there. And then there's Thanos figure and the Lady Death figure, who has been conspicuously absent from the MCU. I have my own reasons, but nevertheless, the way they did it, I think, was done well. Turning it to the point where Thanos wants to bring balance to the universe instead of impressing Lady Death. Oh, actually, there she is. Sorry, I pointed to Doctor Doom there. My apologies. So, 2008, Jon Favreau managed to talk Robert Downey Jr. into taking a role. Robert Downey Jr.'s career was kind of stagnant, less than what it obviously has proven to be. And I remember going to see Iron Man in the theater. I think I was living in Belgium at the time, so I went to the local theater at the AFES Theater, for those of you who know the Army Air Force Exchange. That's the head of theater at Belgium, where I was living, and we went to see it. And I thought the CGI was over the top compared to anything else that was going on or around at that time. There were some solid storytelling. You have elements there, and it was commercially very successful. And it allowed those people to reinvest the money into building more and more. Prior to this, yes, we had the 4 Batman movies, the 3 X-Men movies, the 3 Blade movies. They weren't being as hugely successful as far as laying a foundation to build on. It's kind of one of those, hey, we've got a really good movie. Oh, let's do a second one. And the second ones are never good as the first one. It's kind of like if you watch the Jaws movie. The first one, fantastic. The second one was okay. The third one was like, okay, not as great. Let's do a fourth one. Maybe we'll get lightning in a bottle again. And no, don't waste your time on the fourth one. Have I seen it? Yes, multiple times, and it's one of those where you get to the end of it and you think, why is this shark chasing this lady? Everywhere she goes, she's running into a giant shark that's just bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, well, the movies were kind of like that. They're going to try to go bigger and bigger and bigger, but the stories aren't developed enough. And when you watch the MCU movies, there's a very great tapestry. You get the introduction of some minor character here, and then it gives them the option of bringing that character in later, and they have been extremely successful in doing that, and building up to the culmination of the Infinity Gauntlet, or the Infinity War, and Endgame, and just to give all those characters a great storyline, and to be able to tie it all back with the, I'm assuming everybody here's watched it, so I don't mean to give any spoilers away, but to be able to tie it all back to the groundwork that had been laid since 2008, really not something that's done in movie history before then. Now, we had a lot of the James Bond movies, but obviously the actors and such, you don't get that interwoven tapestry like that. But we did in the MCU, and that built a tremendous success. And taking the stories that Jim Starlin wrote, being able to bring it back, and even to incorporate him, and to see his appearance in Endgame was just such a beautiful little surprise. But the impact of it is that a lot of the books, you go to look at the Tales of Suspense 39 and the Amazing Fantasy 15s and the first appearances of all those characters, the Strange Tales 110, which is a book that I think gets overlooked quite a bit because you just don't find it. I was very fortunate to find the 116, I believe is what that is. Um, to see how all of that history going back 60 years in comics ties into now, and to be able to incorporate some of those stories into our modern mythology. That's the parallel that I see. You know, we go back and we hear the stories of the Greek or Roman heroes, or the Norse heroes, and you could go into any of the great religions around the world, and they've got their heroes, Gilgamesh, and the saga, the Odysseus, the Iliad, Odyssey. Those are fantastic mythologies, and right here we have our modern mythologies, our current ones. So 1,000 years from now, the people that inhabit the earth, are they going to be talking about the ancient hero Iron Man? The ancient villain Thanos? I don't have a good answer for that, but I would think that that's even possible. Are they going to view Thor as a real person, or talk about the legend of Batman, or the myth of Superman, the alien? I think it's a very real possibility, because we are flooding the world with these stories. Now, as a collector, yes, I have financially benefited from the actions of the MCU. Some of the books that are behind me, and I make reference to those a lot, so bear with me on that. But the books that are behind me, I bought because I liked them and I wanted them, and I had the vast majority of them well before the MCU started. But you know, matter of fact, right there, Black Cat, Spider-Man 194. When I was going through my books, I found that one, and it had where I had bought that book for $2 30 years ago, and it's worth quite a bit more than that now. It's not a super high value book, but it's a great book to have in your collection, because, well, they just haven't gotten to Black Cat yet. But there's always these little rumors that may happen. Okay, now we got a lot more of those back up. There are a lot more stories and characters that they can introduce. Second, third, fourth tier characters, which can be introduced. And when they introduce them, that's when a lot of these books take off. Think about the first time Hulk and The Thing match up. That's going to do miracles for that book. And the other ones that are around. Somewhere I've got some other ones up there. I can't figure out exactly where they are at the moment. But Fantastic Four 25. It's not going to hurt those values at all. And we know that the Fantastic Four is likely coming. So as we do this, I have benefited, but it's not the driving force for me. The driving force is to buy what I like, what I find to be interesting, and to complete my runs. I buy as a collector, and as I've said in other episodes, I don't care if the book is coverless or if it's the finest copy on the planet. I am just happy to be the conservator of that amount of history. This has been a bit of a longer episode. Again, I appreciate your time and your views. Like, subscribe, comment if you like, or if you don't mind. And I will bring you more comic book history. Again, my name is Patrick, and I am the comic book veteran.